What's going on, guys? For those that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video we're going to be talking about F1, or its official title I should say, F1 the movie. That's a little bit stupid. In this video, was it good or did it utterly disappoint? Listen, let me give you guys a little bit of context here though. Am I an F1 or race car driving fan? Not in the slightest. I never watched NASCAR, Formula 1, nothing like that. I don't even think I've watched the Indy 500 or Daytona. I've never watched a car race in my entire life. Sure, I've seen clips, I know a little bit of background, but realistically, I don't know anything. My information pretty much just comes from the movie Cars, and that's about it. I'm really not a car guy like that, but at the same time, I was pretty excited going into this movie. Honestly, from months ago, wasn't too hyped, but this past week or so, I've been seeing some good reaction, so I was looking forward to it. I'm a big Brad Pitt guy. Joseph Kosinski, I was excited to see like his second breakout film, I guess you could say, after Top Gun Maverick, which I actually haven't seen, but I'm going to be watching soon. But was this film good, or honestly, was it a bit of a dud? Because again, I'm not really a race car guy. Why would I even like this movie? Is Brad Pitt just too old? Guys, I'm here to tell you right now, this film is absolutely electric, and this is the definition of just your good summer blockbuster. Oh my god, the energy just flowing through this movie. It's like a shot of adrenaline right in your veins. It's 2.5 hours, don't get me wrong. You're sitting in a theater for a good amount of time, but at the same time, with all these just races, all these awesome conversations between characters, you're locked in from the jump. And also, another thing I want to mention before we really get into the details here, I think that they explain Formula race car driving pretty well, because again, I don't know anything about F1, but they do a good enough job at kind of explaining to keep you up to date, I guess you could say, on what goes on in race car driving, because all I know is that there's pit stops, and they race, and they have to cross the finish line. I don't really know much besides that, but listen, let's get into the core here. Speaking of the core, I think the main thing holding this film together, as good as the racing is, it's going to be the core four. What do I mean by that? You've got Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, Kerry Condon, and Javier Bardem. This core four, they're all for the same racing team. They're all working together, even though some of them are butting heads, even though some of them are sort of building their relationship. It's this core of just four awesome actors giving it their all. When you've got Damson Idris' character, who's Pierce, he's like the rookie racer. You've got Brad Pitt's character, Hayes. He's kind of like, the jackass, like old head who's, still got a little bit of juice left in the tank, but he never truly got his shot. Kerry Condon, she's kind of like the car specialist. She like details the cars. And Javier Bardem is like the owner of the team. Their dynamic together as they try to build up this struggling race car team, I just thought was so interesting, because it really feels like their back was against the wall. And going into the plot here, just a little bit, of course, I'm not going to be getting into any types of spoilers, but we start off this movie with, Brad Pitt just kind of being this guy who's floating around. He's just trying to seek that thrill of racing. So he's in NASCAR. He was racing in the Daytona, or is that NASCAR? I'm honestly not really sure. But then someone comes up to him, his old buddy, Javier Bardem, and he's like, yo, come join our team. We really need a good racer, and I know you're a good racer. So he joins him. And Damson Idris is not a fan of that, because now they're going to be teammates. And Damson Idris, again, he's like the rookie. He's kind of cocky, because he's like, I'm the young guy. Why do we have this old guy in here? And Brad Pitt's character, he's kind of like, listen, I know more than you. I'm going to try to stay humble. But at a certain point, they start to bash heads. And I think this is just such a great example of the I guess you could say enemies to lovers type of scenario. Enemies to friends. Of course, they're not lovers. But in all seriousness, it's just one of these things where, how are they going to work it out? You're just sitting there wondering, man, how are they going to work together? Because they are a team. So it's interesting when the conflict is on the same team. It's not like they're just enemies, they're opposite teams. No, they need to just figure out a way to work together, even if their chemistry isn't there. And I like the way that over the course of this movie, it turns into one of these things where they're starting to figure each other out a little bit. Even though, again, it's one of these things where it's one step forward, one step back, one step forward, two steps back, because things are going wrong, cars are going flying, who's getting mad at who. It's just this crazy mess. I still think it's just so interesting that the old guy who thinks he knows everything, Brad Pitt's character, is kind of starting to realize, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm getting a little bit too crazy. Maybe I'm acting a little bit too reckless. Let me just bring my tone down a little bit. And the new guy is kind of saying, you know what? maybe I can learn a thing or two from this old guy over the course of this film, even if it takes a little bit for them to actually get to that point, if they do, which is what you're left wondering about halfway through this movie. Because halfway through this movie, there's this one moment that really sets the tone for the second half where my mouth was open. The whole theater was silent. It was ridiculously exciting. But from there, you've got Kerry Condon in there. She's got a little bit of a relationship sparking with Brad Pitt's character. A little bit of romance for your summer blockbuster hit. And God, it's just so entertaining. And then when you've got Javier Bardem, who's starting to doubt Brad Pitt's character because, again, he's a bit reckless. He's a bit of a loose cannon. When you've got Javier Bardem and Brad Pitt in the same scene, face-to-face, kind of getting at each other, you could just feel the energy of these seasoned vets, these Oscar winners, just going at each other, man. And it's one of these things where when they're talking to each other, it's almost like you can feel that energy where they're like, yeah, we're good, right, guys? Like, they're looking at the audience and saying that because they're just spectacular. And also, I've got to say, it feels really good to see Javier Bardem in, like, a good film. I feel like his track record's been a bit spotty since No Country for Old Men. I don't think that's really a slight against him. He was in, like, The Little Mermaid and the I Love Lucy movie, but to see him in a good movie, just giving, like, a really solid performance, it's just so awesome, man. I'm happy that he's just back on track, like the racetrack. And speaking of the racetrack, that was a pretty good transition. I've got to say, man, Joseph Kosinski knows how to film races and action and vehicles, because the way this film is shot, my mind cannot even comprehend what I was watching. The races are going on. There's fireworks in the sky. There's lights flashing. The camera, it's so dynamic. It's so, like I mentioned earlier in this video, electric. The camera does not stop moving. You're seeing what's going on. It's not hard to understand what's going on. There's some graphics. There's some announcers kind of giving you an idea of, you know, who's where in the race and all that. But I've got to say, at its core, the camera work is what's really selling this, because, oh my God, between the editing and then again, the camera that's on a racer, and then all of a sudden it's like rotating 90 degrees to the car that's on the side of it, then it rotates seamlessly to the front of the car, rotates to the other side of the car where it's showing a car that's going to hit it, and then it rotates back to the driver. The camera's doing a full 360 around the race car. There's so many other cool shots like that where you're just like, how did they film this? And it makes me realize how little I actually know about filmmaking. I like to think that I know some stuff, but this movie almost humbled my knowledge of filmmaking. I'm like, I don't know anything, because how the hell did they do this? I don't know what was practical. I don't know what was CGI. I don't know what was on a racetrack. I don't know what was on a set. I have no idea. And that's the best part of this movie, because it's so immersive. I swear, whenever these cars are flying by, I feel like I was about to duck in the theater, like, whoa. It's obnoxiously loud. The sound design is incredible. When you go to a pit stop, you're hearing all like, the screwdrivers, you're hearing the tires pop on, and then all of a sudden, bam, the car's right back off. It's incredible. And Hans Zimmer scored this movie, by the way. Just another banging soundtrack from him. When's the guy gonna retire? Hopefully never, but it almost feels like Challengers, where it's like a bit upbeat, like that uplifting kind of music, but there's a little bit of like techno in there. There's some soundtrack, like there's like actual songs in this movie. And man, from start to finish, it's a thrilling ride. And I actually did not mention my favorite part of the movie yet. The final race, and it's not a spoiler, okay? Obviously, this movie's going to end with a race. It's an F1 movie. The final race in here is literally one of the most thrilling scenes that I've seen all year, if not the most thrilling. My eyes, I'm not exaggerating, were tearing up at the very end of this race. Not even because it was emotional. It was emotional, because they do a really good job at giving us the background of these characters, what this race means to each of them, because to both of these guys that are kind of competing against each other, they're racing for different reasons, even if they're on the same team. I was tearing up, not only because of the emotions, but purely because of the filmmaking that was on display. So epic and so true to Hollywood. I was just like, this is why I love movies. That's what this movie reminded me of in that final moment there. Just truly incredible. And when a movie can do that, how am I not going to love it? But listen, let me jump over to the negatives just for a second, then we'll go back on the positives. I do have one major negative. See, like I said, I don't know anything about F1, but I do think that they force feed you exposition in pretty rough ways throughout the races. To be fair, it's mostly in the first half, because then in the second half, you already know like what's going on with the races, so they don't really have to do it as much anymore. But there's a lot of times where they use announcers to basically spoon feed you information about what's going on. Why do they have to go to a pit stop? Why is there some violation or something? And I think they did it in the best way that they could through announcers, rather than having characters like, oh my god, they're stopping because blah blah blah, because it makes it just feel a bit more energetic and like you're really just watching a race. Because, you know, when you're watching a football game or a basketball game, they are talking about what's going on, but it is so direct, like over the top direct. And to be fair, again, it helped me a lot because I didn't know what was going on. And then in the second half of the film, when I'm watching that final race and they're not explaining things, I'm sitting there like, oh my god, wait, they have to make a pit stop because the tires are going off and they can't, oh wait, they can't do this. And I feel like all of a sudden I know everything about F1, so they did a good job. I understand they had to do it, but it's honestly pretty brutal, and they're literally talking to you like you're a toddler, even though, again, I did kind of need it. But I feel like maybe if they could have just been a little bit more subtle, maybe a bit more show don't tell, but I still really enjoyed it. And from there, I think that this movie being 2 hours and 35 minutes, you could have slimmed off 10 minutes of this movie. Just 10 minutes. I think that there's a good mix. There's a nice balance, a good flow to this story. But like I just mentioned with the balance of racing and, like, you know, just talking, little scenes like that. And you get a lot of racing in this movie. They do not cheap out. There's literally, I'm not even exaggerating, like 8 races in this movie, and they're all like extended scenes. It's not even just like some little thing here and there. You're getting a lot of racing if you're going to this movie. If you're an F1 fan, I can't even imagine like how over the top this must be for you. Lewis Hamilton's in here as well. I know him. That's like the one guy I know. That was also cool to see. I saw he was a producer as well, so that's really awesome. But that's pretty much all my negatives. Now listen, going back to the positives, like I just said, as cool as the racing is, I just feel like the characters are what really brought it together. Because, again, I look at Damson Idris's character, they don't give him too much background. Like, you know, his mom's in the movie, and you kind of see that his father died, and, you know, he's kind of recovering from that. It's something that's looming in the back of his head. But at the same time, I like that they didn't give him too much background because of the fact that he's the rookie. And they spend a lot more time developing Brad Pitt's character's background, which makes sense because he's the vet. He's the washed, you know, skilled guy who's got a little bit left in the tank. Does he still have anything in him to, you know, perform for this team, or is he, again, just washed? Is he, you know, a dinosaur at this point? Should he be in a casket at this point? Is he that old? And I like this dynamic where you got the young guy bouncing off him, and they're trying to learn from each other. Brad Pitt's character is like, listen, I'm not going to let you push me around, but at the same time, you know, you got to listen to me a little bit, okay? And then Damson Idris's character is like, listen to me. I am not going to take your shit, man. I'm new here, man. I'm a rookie. I'm good. I know I'm a skilled driver. And it's a matter of finding that dynamic and watching this bond grow over the course of the movie. Even if for 90% of it, they're basically just beefing. But it's such an awesome film, man. Seriously, again, the dynamic, you got a little romance in there. You've got a little bit of heat and frustration. There's some scenes where you're like, oh my god, why is this character doing this? But it makes sense why they're doing something frustrating, because it's earned, because you've watched their character develop up to this point. You understand their personality, so it makes sense. Maybe if the character's personality wasn't developed, then you'd be like, oh, this is just a stupid movie decision. Why would this character, you know, bump into this car? That's so dumb. But you realize over the course of the film, again, as you kind of learn the characters, oh, I see why he's racing so recklessly, or why he's playing it so safe right now, and then he's getting a little bit crazier later. It kind of goes along in a parallel fashion with the personalities of the characters. Their personalities are how they race, and how they race is who they are. It kind of goes back in on itself. I truly loved this film, man. But I'm just going to go out on a limb here and give this film 4.5 stars. I loved this film. I just truly think it's electric, and I can't wait to watch it for a second time to really solidify my rating, because I'll be honest, I'm a bit flimsy on that rating. I feel like I'm leaning a bit closer maybe to 4. It's like a weaker 4.5, if you will. But at the same time, man, I can't wait to rewatch this film. It's just electric. It has you on the edge of your seat. It develops the characters while also giving you the insane race car action that you're looking for. But that's going to just about do it for this video. Let me know if you guys have checked out F1 or not. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.